Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a very interesting type of checkmate, two minor piece checkmate. And so basically, many people really think in chess, checkmates are usually delivered by rooks and queens and kings in the endgame, or even pawns. But no one really thinks about two minor pieces giving the checkmate, only two minor pieces. So I'm gonna talk about this checkmate. And so yeah, let's get started. So there's many different types of two minor piece checkmates because there's two types of minor pieces. There's the knights and then there's the bishops. So a king and a minor piece itself cannot deliver checkmate to a king by itself. But if you have two minor pieces, then it might be possible. So if you have two knights, though, you can get checkmate. If here, white could deliver checkmate, but he cannot force black into checkmate. Black will just have to unfortunately stumble across the checkmate. Here, if you think about it, you can never, with two knights, you can never force black in the corner. Even if he is in the corner, you gotta, in this corner of the board, this position of the board, you gotta force him into the very, very corner of the board. And you simply can't do that right now. You could do this, and then the black king moves aside, but you can't really force anything. You really, for black, you just gotta be very, very I guess not aware of what the checkmate is gonna be. But basically, if you think about it, the white king will have to be in opposition of the black king, and there will have to be a knight guarding g8, and then there has to be a knight checking the king on h8. That way, the king cannot move forward because the white king is guarding because of opposition. He cannot move to g8 because there would be a knight protecting g8, and it'll be in check. So the next type is the two bishop checkmate, and so basically it's so here it's not by itself. These two bishops are not by themselves. It's with other pieces. But so black is up a pawn, right? But black is also in a very bad position because now black cannot go to the 7th rank. He has to go to g8 first. That's his only exit from h8. And so basically, first move that white should play is bishop e6 because it blocks black's exit. So notice how before, without the bishop on e6, black's only square for his king that he could go to is g8. Now he can't do that. So now black is kind of trapped. And so black might notice that bishop to d4 will be checkmate. There will be nothing to stop that, right? Well, black, he could play knight b5 to prevent bishop d4 checkmate. But then white just goes to bishop h2, and then here black cannot do anything. He could kind of I guess I don't know, do some sort of move, but it won't really help him into blocking that checkmate, because now that's checkmate. And so this next board, basically, it's two bishops by themselves. So remember how two knights by themselves, really difficult to force checkmate. You can't force it. but two bishops you could force checkmate. So basically, think of like the two bishops. They have to be on consecutive diagonals. So here the dark square bishop is guarding the diagonal b8 to h2, while the light square bishop is guarding c8 to h3. They are consecutive diagonals. So black cannot get out of his little triangle because now white guards the diagonal, so black's king cannot cross those that border right there. So basically, what you want to do is kind of trap the black king into as small of a corner as possible, and then after that, then you could kind of do what we did before in the previous board. You could then trap the king and then deliver checkmate. So here the king has to get involved as well, because remember how last board we had a pawn helping us, but now we don't have any pawns, so we got to get the king to help us. So we could play king f6, and so that takes the g7 square away from the black king. So now black's only move is king h7. And then now bishop f4 to prevent king h6. So now black is kind of trapped on two squares, h8 and h7. So now black just got to go back to h8. He can't do anything else. And king f7, just to get the opposition, get a better oppositions, and also help guard the g8 square so that the light squared bishop can move away. And then now king h7 goes back, of course, that's his only move. And now bishop f5, because now this light square bishop no longer has to guard g8, so it could do whatever it wants. Now, so f5 check, right? And so notice how the two bishops are now on consecutive diagonals again. So that means black cannot move up away because now the dark square bishop is guarding it. So black still has to go back to king h8, and then bishop e5 will be checkmate. So that's very interesting because basically you have the king. You have to have the king in opposition of the black king, and then you have to have a bishop taking away the a square next to the black king, and then you have to have a bishop checking the black king. And then this next one is gonna be bishop and the knight checkmate. So this is very interesting. We have two ways to checkmate from here. So this is with pieces. This is with black having rooks and two pawns. Now, if it was black's move, I mean, he could probably escape checkmate before it hits him. He can move I don't know, move the h pawn or try to check the king with the rook. Just try to get something out of it. So the knight and bishop mate, it's not as strong as the two bishops, but it still works. It's not gonna be as effective. And so white, he can mate in two ways. He can mate one by taking his pawn. Notice how the dark square bishop is now checking the king. So now the king, he cannot move forward, and he cannot take this knight even though the knight is checking, because the bishop will still be checking. So it's a double check. So now the king has to move over to g8, and then checkmate right here, because now the knight just delivers a checkmate. And notice how the king cannot go to f7, g7, or h8. f7 because of the knight guarding it, and g7 and h8 because of the bishop guarding it. Now the next way that white could deliver checkmate is by doing this knight g6. And so basically it's a double check again. So black cannot take the knight, and he cannot block with f6 because the knight will still be checking. So black again has to move over, and then the knight just goes over to like e7 and then checkmates, because now the king cannot go to g7 or h8 because of the bishop, and it's in check. Now what if you didn't have any pieces on the board except your own knight and bishops? So as I said, the knight and bishop is not as powerful as the two bishops, so it's gonna be kind of tedious. You gotta herd the king into like the correct corner. You gotta get the king into the corner square, the same color corner square as your bishop is. So if your bishop is a dark square bishop, then you gotta herd the opposite king into like a1 or h8. If you had a light square bishop on the board, you had to get the king into like a8 or h1, because that way the bishop could deliver checkmate more easily. Well, not even more easily, because like you can't deliver checkmate at all if it's not on the same color square. So knight d5, basically try to get the knight in the act, and so black's only move is going to be king h7, and then you just move your bishop away to bishop f8, still guarding h6, so the king only has king h8 and h7 as well. So going to f8, notice how we're not moving it this way. We're not moving it along the c1 to h6 diagonal. We're going to move it along the f8 to h6 diagonal. That way the bishop could then soon jump in onto g7 to checkmate the king. Because if it goes down to like the c1 to h6 diagonal, then it can't really jump to g7 anymore. So we're going to move it to f8. And of course we're not going to move it to g7, bishop g7, because then that would be stalemate. And I mean, that would be pretty good for black and pretty bad for white. So king h8 goes back, that's his only move. And bishop g7 to check. But notice how we didn't want to move to knight f6, because then that would also be stalemate. So we're going to move bishop to here, g7 check. And so now it's not going to be stalemate because now black is in check. So now king back to h7, and then the knight delivers the checkmate with knight f6. And that's pretty interesting, but you gotta make sure that you get the king in the correct corner. Notice how like we couldn't checkmate the black king if it was not on the same color same color square as the bishop is, because like then the bishop won't be able to check on that corner square. So yeah, so that would be about it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and learned a lot about the two minor piece mate. If you guys did, leave a like, subscribe, and click that notifications bell to see more chess videos.